Good afternoon, everyone. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Are we recording live now? Are we good to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our March 17th COAC meeting. Thank you for joining us yet again. We have another packed agenda as always. Again, my name is John L. Bell, and I serve as the COAC's facilitator. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Just a couple of notes for general public attendees. You will be in listening mode only. Today's meeting will be live streamed and recorded via YouTube and will be made public on ODOT's project website. Next slide, please. Just a reminder for Zoom participants, Zoom will be available for presenters and COAC members. As indicated, the general public viewing will occur via YouTube live stream. For those of us here today, please raise your hand to speak. Please remain on mute until you are recognized. And again, COAC members, if you would not mind, please having your cameras on as we try to create an opportunity for community in this digital space. If you are not on the COAC, we ask that you please keep your video off unless you are speaking. If you're having technical issues, you may call or text 503-479-8674. Next slide, please. Just to go over the agenda, we'll once again welcome everyone. We'll talk a little bit about our ground rules. We'll have a quick discussion about our February 17th meeting summary notes. We'll receive project update from Megan, as well as HAB update by Erica. We'll then receive a joint venture update. We'll then have a robust discussion relative to the performance measures led by Monica. And then we'll have an opportunity of breaking out into some small groups. We'll do a report out. We will then receive public comments and then discuss next steps and conclusions. Next slide, please. Just a reminder for all of us, our ground rules or rules of the road is for us to let everyone participate by listening to and respecting the diverse views and opinions, for us to listen with an open mind, to value learning from different input, to stay open to new ways of doing things, for us to treat others constructively and respectfully, to please respect the role of the facilitator to guide the group process. Again, my job is to keep the conversation moving along. For us to attack the problem, not the person. Disagreement, frustrations, and differences of opinion are acknowledged, explored, and addressed. Again, we want the richness of all of your good thinking here in this collective space. Next slide, please. I just want to see if we have any questions or comments relative to the February 17th COAC meeting. You should have received those meeting summary notes in email. Okay, hearing or seeing none. With that, I will turn it over to Megan Chennel, our project director, for a project update. Megan.
Thanks, Janelle, and good afternoon, COAC. Before I jump into any updates, I actually want to introduce a colleague of mine, Shane Whittington. He is our social equity program manager with our Office of Social Equity within ODOT. So wanted to introduce him. He again wanted to come and have a touch point with the COAC, but also share some work that's happening as it relates to our social equity office and interaction with the community. So Shane, I will turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Megan. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me in this meeting. About Office of Social Equity. One of the things that I wanted to come and talk about, or the thing I wanted to come and talk about today, was our recent engagement effort that we did statewide for the federal money that the state of Oregon Department of Transportation will be receiving, and it is a part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that was signed by the Biden administration. And the effort that we did was under a very, very tight timeline. In that timeline, we were trying to do very intentional engagement. So we reached out to a few consultants that had relationships with ODOT to try to do engagement in a very short period of time. And we want to just acknowledge that we missed some opportunities here. And we want to make sure that we get that right moving forward, specifically with the timeline that we have when we engage with the community. And we want to do that in a more intentional way. And we want to do it in a way where we allow people to actually give us feedback in the timeframes that they can offer, and not necessarily just the timeframes that we have that we've put on ourselves here. So with that being said, there are more opportunities. There is another opportunity for you to give us feedback on the Infrastructure and Investment Act through the OTC, that they will take that feedback into consideration as they move forward with the plans that we will have as ODOT. They will issue those plans and outline them on March 30th. But we do have more opportunity for you to engage with some links that we have for you to do the survey. And that will be due on the 21st by 6 p.m. But we still are needing feedback, as much feedback as we can get on that, so we can make sure that we hear you all's voices, and your voices can impact the decisions that we make around the budget associated with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, colloquially called. So with that being said, as intentional and inclusive as possible in any process that we have, but specifically around engagement and feedback that we get here at ODOT. With that being said, if anybody has any questions or would like to offer anything, please let me know. Please go to the website. You can literally click, if you do have it. Oh, thank you, Megan, for posting in the chat. We have different translations we have an English translation and a Spanish translation of the documents that we do want to survey and get feedback on. But you can also go to the link there to the actual website. If you forget anything else, the last thing I'll say is that you can go to, and in the search field, you can type ODOT and then IIJA, and the first thing that pops up should be the same information here.
Okay, with that, I see James Posey has a question or comment. James?
Yeah, my comment maybe is not directly related to you or what you just presented, but I have a concern. This is called a COAC, and there's been several members who have not showed up for this COAC meeting. And in order for this organization, this committee, or whatever you want to call it, to be legitimately a part of the community, I think we need to have full representation of our community. And I don't know how to be gentle. Y'all know I'm not, I'm a hammer and a sledgehammer kind of guy. I'm not a gentle person. So, but whatever you need to do to see where people's interests are in terms of continuing on this committee, we need to make sure this is a viable, real community committee. So I'm suggesting, I'll just shut up at this point. You all get my drift. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that point, James. I think it's a warranted comment, and I think it's something that we need to circle back with members who have not been attending and find out willingness of continuing. And if folks are prepared to step down, for us to identify new members. So I agree, we need to have a robust group. So good point. Other Art, I see Art.
Yeah, I want to be in support of James Posey's statement. Not just the facilitators saying we'll do something. I agree. It takes a lot of effort to make these things happen, and when people aren't engaged in following through with the activity, it really makes things go backwards, and it burns a hole in everybody's heart over that. So I'm with James Posey on that.
Great, thank you. Other comments or thoughts, in particular for Shane? Okay, thank you, Shane. Megan, back to you.
Thanks, Janelle. And Janelle, just note, let's partner together to address James's point and Art's point around the COAC membership and participation as well. So happy. I want to be as supportive as I can in making sure this is a robust group and getting the community what they need. All right, so kind of following up by way of funding conversations, I wanted to loop back on a conversation that we had a couple COAC meetings ago where I was giving an update just on project status and project cost, and make sure that I'm empowering you as the COAC with the same information that we've shared with our Oregon Transportation Commission by way of project cost. So just as a quick reminder, back in the fall of 2021, kind of through the course of 2021, went through the independent cover assessment process, which came to the conclusion of the proposed hybrid 3 concept that modifies the project design to make the highway covers longer, stronger, able to accommodate buildings on top, as well as some additional reconnection of streets. So with that, the project cost has changed and has increased. So the numbers that you see on your screen here reflect total project costs incorporating the hybrid 3 concept. So we're looking at 2 different cost areas. One is for a highway cover that would accommodate up to 3-story buildings. So you can see that as a cost of $1.18 to $1.25 billion range. For accommodating additional stories on top of the highway cover up to 6 stories, there's a delta, an add for the cost on that one, the order of about $200 million, which brings the cost range to $1.35 billion to $1.45 billion. So just wanted to, again, empower you with that cost information, but also couple that with a notation of the existing funding that we have. So for funding, as I'm sure you all know, House Bill 2017 is our primary funding source and our only dedicated funding source to date. And that was passed back in 2017 and provides bonding for the project. And so we are anticipating that funding to be on the order of about $500 million to $700 million, with the low range based on a high interest rate at the time of bonding, and the high range, $700 million, with a low interest rate at the time of bonding. So what this identifies is that we do have a funding gap. We are going to be leveraging the federal competitive grant opportunities, some of the new opportunities that have been identified as part of the infrastructure bill that Shane mentioned as well. So we've definitely have some work to do. But again, I wanted to just make sure that this group was empowered with that information. I'll also flag that, in order for us to demonstrate strong competitiveness for upcoming federal grant opportunities, having the kind of voiced community support around that will be helpful. So I know we had talked previously about COAC potentially writing a letter to the federal delegation or providing some support. I would just want to flag that we may be coming back to you with some more information on that, should you be interested as a COAC in providing that support. So with that, that concludes my funding related update. I did also want to just circle back on the City of Portland partnership. I know that's something that many of you are tracking closely with us, and just wanted you to know that the intergovernmental agreement, the document that we are actively negotiating, that will take to City Council, and that will be the document that City Council, if they approve, would bring the city back to the table. We're actively working on that. I'm awaiting the city to identify our specific council date, but we're anticipating it to be sometime next month. So I'll keep you posted on when that city council date is, but we're in progress and making really good strides on that. So with that, that concludes my update, and Janelle, I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments for Megan? James Posey?
Yeah, Megan, I think it was real crucial for that report on this gap on this financing piece. I think if you guys recall, AVT and some of the other people out here who were advocating for the cap was really strategically trying to get our congressional delegation involved in this process. And they made a lot of comments was all in the media, et cetera, about their willingness to come up with this money. And my only experience with, this sort of political conundrum had to do with TriMed. TriMed had dedicated people lobbying the congressional delegation to make sure this money flowed. And if we leave it to just our intuition or whatever, then I'm afraid that gap is not going to be, we're going to struggle with that. The earlier we get on that and really talk about specific ways in which to hold these politicians accountable to what they said, I think we'd be better off. I don't think we ought to let this lie down, Megan. And so I don't know how the COAC can intervene, but that's something that's really important in terms of our whole process. So I hope you'll come back with a more detailed plan about how we can help with closing this financial gap.
Yeah, absolutely, James, you're spot on there. And what I would say to that too is, the COAC, if there's support, maybe I'll put that ask out here, if there's support for writing a letter in the near term to the federal delegation, really, I think, James, in response to the letter that you're referencing was covered in the media, maybe a powerful statement by the COAC and just kind of bringing Rose Porter to top of mind. And again, in response to that, I think ODOT's voice is helpful, but the community voice is powerful. So I'll pose that as a question, and Janelle, I'll defer to you on whether we want to answer that now or later during one-on-ones, but that is an option that we could do in the immediate. And then James, I'll definitely, we'll do some more thinking and come back with a strategic plan around that as well.
Great, thank you, Megan. Other questions, comments for Megan? Okay, seeing none. I would now like to invite Erica Warren to provide an update on HAB.
Thanks, Janelle. Thank you, COAC members, for allowing me to be in the space with you all this evening. We met with the historic Albina Advisory Board just Tuesday. Had a robust discussion around some of the same issues. Had an opportunity to engage with Shane around the Infrastructure Jobs Act and really are diving deep into our relationship and work with the urban design team. The community involved in the HAB are having an opportunity to see what it would look like really to infuse Albina history, cultural representation, historic imprint, if you will, into this infrastructure project. And it has been a really engaging conversation about what it could look like really to pay homage, respect, to acknowledge the historic Albina community set in stone, if you will. And so those conversations are ongoing, and the Historic Albina Advisory Board as well, Mr. Posey is wanting to engage in strategy around how we help and advocate for our leaders and politicians helping in this effort to hear and value the community's voice and helping us fill that gap. So one main area, I think, of concern and strategy moving forward, HAB members are hoping to have more collaborative interaction, not only with the COAC, but with the EMAC, the equity group that is working on the tolling project, as well as on the IBR project, that we aren't just as siloed in our individual little areas, but that there is an overall fluidity and regional strategy that coincides with the Urban Mobility Office. And so just putting that out to leadership and how we might be able to come together and learn from each other and exchange in all of this great work that we're doing in the community. So look forward to continuing that relationship with you all.
Great, thank you so much, Erica, for your great work with HAB and for your leadership in the community. Any questions or comments for Erica? Okay, seeing none. With that, I would now like to invite Bill Bruce with CMGC's team to give us an update and to lead us through a presentation. Bill?
Thanks, Jonelle. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to provide a pre-construction update. All right, good stuff. Next slide, please. So in this update tonight, we're kind of the we're not the main show here tonight. This is just an update on activity that's been going on. Terrence is going to give you a workforce development update, and then I'm going to follow with an update on early work package A. Next slide, Terrence.
How y'all doing? As y'all know, my name is Terrence Hayes. This is a update for workforce. Next slide, please. So as y'all know, just a reminder, these are our 4 avenues to employment: direct hire, pre-apprenticeship, apprenticeship, and middle management internship. Next slide. So let's look at some of our placement activities. First, looking at interns. With Rose Quarter, we've placed 2 interns so far. With Division Transit, 1 intern. Laborers, we've placed 2 interns in the Dalles. And with the DTP, Division Transit Project, we've placed 4 laborers. Flagging, altogether with a company we work with, a minority company called All About Flagging, we've placed 3 flaggers and 1 driver with City of Roses. Next slide, please. So these are some of our coordination efforts and the people we're working with: Northwest College of Construction, Constructing Hope, Central City Concern, Portland Opportunities, POIC, Oregon Department of Corrections, Going Home 2, Liberation Literacy, and Oregon Youth Authorities. So I've been working with these organizations to help get people in the BIPOC community into construction. So really grateful for the organization and the work they're doing. Next slide, please. Some of the upcoming partner projects that we have, work that's coming up where we can place people, is the Tualatin Water Treatment Plant with Sunt Goodfellows joint venture. And then Raymore has the U.S. Post Office demolition. So we're using these upcoming projects to help place people and get them into construction. Next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about what I feel like is like a really amazing opportunity, is the work I'm able to do with OYA. We're getting some of these young people placed right into coming home. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about OYA. OYA is pretty much where young people who's gotten into some trouble, it's the last place that they go when the community or when the system doesn't have other alternatives for them. So it's pretty much more of the high risk young people. So what I've been doing, I've been meeting monthly with the staff, probation officers, and the clients, young people who's got into some trouble. I've been doing monthly meetings with them, introductions to construction, talking about needs that's associated with these clients, working closely with the POs to talk about construction and how we can meet the needs, and then making sure I build the healthy relationships. These are young people, so I'm looking at trying to balance the POs, the young people, and their parents, because you're talking anywhere from like 18 to early 20s, so they're really closely knit with their family. So we're doing all we can to build close-knit relationships as a whole to give them the support that they need. So far, we're working with OYA. We've had about 4 meetings. We've placed 1 individual so far. He's working full-time. And then we have 3 more individuals in the queue to start up with Northwest College of Construction this month in their apprenticeship program. So back to you, Bill.
Thanks, Terrence. Okay, so early work package A specifics. These next few slides that I'm going to show you, we've been on the road the last 3 weeks. We've presented these slides to NAMAC and PBDG. There were over 90 participants at the NAMAC meeting, and there were close to the same number last night at PBDG. And we've had some really good time to present the project, catch people up on all the work that's been happening. So I'll give you sort of the same presentation that we've given them. As you all know, the project has been broken into these 4 components: early work package A, the north end; early work package B, the south end; early work package C, which has a little piece that in the north and a little piece in the south over Holiday. And then the 3 little squares that you see in the red area are the building demolition that would go along with early work package C as well. And then everything in the red being the main construction package. And the project's essentially been broken up in this manner so that we can start the project on time, even though the main construction package has obviously been put back into the design process and delayed. Next slide, please. So early work package A specifically is at the north end, and I'm going to talk a little bit in more detail about the scope that goes with it. Next slide, please. So early work package A has a number of stormwater improvements that happen up near the Greeley interchange, including bioswales, we call them, storm pipe, and manholes, all work that our DB community can perform. It has 3 little sections of bridge widening where we're widening little portions of the existing structures. This is classic Hamilton Sunk work. It's all structural work. It's way up in the air, and it's very complicated, I'll say. Then on Russell Street and Kirby, there's street improvements, which I'd call your typical streetscape job. Again, the kind of work that our DB community has plenty of capacity to perform. And then retaining walls 1 and 2, and the sound walls that go along the top of retaining walls 1 and 2A, and that's running south from Russell Street right up to the north limit of the school. Next slide, please. So the way we've packaged these, just like we've described in the diversity plan, is we think that there's 3 mini CMGC opportunities here. The first 2 would be traditional. The wall package, not very many of our DBs have ever performed these types of walls. These are soldier pile walls with cast in place veneer face, and MSE walls with lightweight fill behind them. Sound walls, people do have had experience placing those. The civil streetscape is a good opportunity again for mini prime, because it involves a complete package where they would have likely 5 to 6 subcontractors underneath them. They'd be managing the whole project essentially. And then lastly, although I didn't describe it in the previous slide, there's 3 new sign structures for the freeway. And we think this is a good opportunity for capacity building. We think there's a number of firms that have done work that's similar, although not exactly like these sign structures. And we don't think it's that big of a stretch to draw them into this scope. So again, if you remember the terminology that we used in the diversity plan, scope 3, the sign structure, this would be a capacity building scope of work. Next slide. So how we're going to procure these 3 mini CMGCs for package A are through a best value selection. We're asking them to write us a proposal. There's 5 categories that we're asking them to respond to. General qualifications, number 1. Number 2, their approach to the work. Number 3, their approach to diversity and outreach. for their organization, the key personnel that they would dedicate to the project. And then lastly, there's a price evaluation component. And all 5 of these categories are evenly weighted in the proposal. It's much the same as the format for which the joint venture was selected. Next slide, please. So the successful proposer on any one of these 3 scopes of work would start a pre-construction services phase with us this spring, working with us between the 60 and 90% design for package A. And the first cost estimate that they would perform would be this fall on the 90% cost estimate. So hopefully all this sounds familiar from the things that we've been describing in the diversity plan over the last year. And I can tell you it's exciting to actually get this stuff into play. And I can tell you that the audiences that we've had at NAMAC and PVDG equally have been excited to hear about it. And I think that's all I have for you tonight, Jonelle.
Great. Questions for Bill and team? James Posey? And then we'll do Art.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, Bill, you know, and Terrence, you know, I know you guys have been working with the Coalition of Black Men on that graffiti thing. I don't know if you guys saw the article in the Portland Tribune about the graffiti and I mean, maybe that's just a, you know, a spur under my saddle that I'm concerned about, but for me, it represents a great opportunity to get our people involved. And this is, I know this is separate from what Bill just presented, what you just presented, Terrence, but, you know, I've had some conversations with the city of Portland. MAP's office wants to work with you guys, wants to work with anybody out here, help clean up some of this mess that's out here around graffiti. And I'm just hopeful that if you all don't have the wherewithal to engage them, y'all let us know so we can stop. And, you know, our anticipation won't be that somehow that's going to fall out on the ground. So I guess my question is will we at some point really engage the city on some of these ancillary kinds of opportunities that we can actually physically see stuff happening on the ground? And with that is the other piece that concerns me is the absence of a workforce database directly related to what we anticipate having going forward that we can share with folks so we can see names on that database that we know who are out here who need some opportunity. Can y'all just briefly hit that a little bit?
Yeah. Why don't I take a shot, Terrence? Regarding the topic of nuisance abatement, we've used one of our partner projects, the Division Transit Project, to stand up 2 new small firms, both of which we think are certifiable as DVs. One of them sponsored by the Coalition of Black Men, and one of them sponsored by the Division Midway Alliance, which is a small CBO out in the Midway neighborhood. We've used that Division Transit Project and TriMet as a way to fund these 2 startups. And Terrence has used these 2 companies as an opportunity to place people. So 4 of the people that you heard Terrence describe, including the one from OIA, we've filled these 4 slots with those people, which is really exciting opportunity, but it moves kind of slow when you're trying to stand up a new company. It's not an overnight thing. It takes a lot of effort and intentionality, and I'm happy with the progress of where we are today with it. I hope it can grow to compete with the bigger companies that are doing nuisance abatement right now, like River City and others. so to the, and yes, I think that we envision that this scope exists within the I-5 Rose Quarter project. I believe it does. We've also been engaging PBOT and in trying to get them to create similar scope of work to maintain the new improvements to their assets that we've been performing out on the division corridor. We haven't quite closed that deal, but we're working on it, and I think that we will be able to get some more scope out of PBOT if we can get them to lean in, and which will allow for more participants and further growth of these two businesses. Regarding the database, when Terrence started working and coordinating with the pre-apprenticeship organizations and the JATCs, we started creating our own database. It's really an Excel spreadsheet, because I wanted to be able to track how many people were coming in, where they were going, what our retention rates were, where we were having success, where we were having failure. I got to put it to you this way: we've only turned that faucet on a little bit because we don't have enough partner projects and places to put people. So I haven't, if we really turn this on and start and connecting with everybody, then we've got to have places to put people. And so for everybody in this room, I want you to know that we're moving slow, even though that sheet that he put in front of you had close to 12 or 14 placements. That's going slow.
Great. Thank you for that, Bill. Art?
Yeah, thank you, Janelle. Bill, I'm always about capacity, and you've said it a couple times in your statement. And looking at those packages, as you were just stating, that there's going to take some effort to make sure that there's a continuing activity for contractors that you're vetting out through your RFP. And the other portion to that is I think about systemic issues that happen regularly, and we're not, and it comes on a standard everyday form for us that we've been completely used to seeing, and we create those practices and they get repeated again. So I would ask you to think about your RFP. Are we a partner? Are we going to create a process that makes it hard for somebody to be successful at winning a project that needs partnering with? I say that heavily, even though I'm talking calmly. I don't believe that capacity is able to be built when you create a huge obstacle for a business to have an opportunity to grow themselves with an opportunity with ODOT. So I would like to understand what you mean by capacity with that package 3 that you're talking, or the third item on your list on the signage.
Okay, absolutely. When I was using the term capacity building, I was talking about scopes of work where we have not seen DBEs perform previously. So a little different, I think, than where you're coming from, but I can also speak to where you're coming from, where I think you're coming from with your comment.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we're given an opportunity, and the way that the RFP goes out, that there is help for those RFPs for the folks that are wanting an opportunity. In this case, you're not going to have very many people that have the skill sets to write a really good RFP to get qualified for a project such as this. And this is also something that subtracts them from the opportunity. So I worry about worry about that. And I talk like this because this has happened to myself over the years. I've fought my way to where I'm at. And a lot of people aren't going to fight because they're looking for an opportunity. James Posey would be just like I am. If he wanted to go out and make something happen, he's going to go make it happen because he's determined to do that. He knows he has to fight for it.
Yeah, let me respond to your comment. I agree wholeheartedly with you. Matt O'Connell and I did everything we could in writing this solicitation to make it as simple to respond to as possible. But that being said, it's still a ton of work to write a 10 to 15 page proposal and do an estimate for a 60% set of drawings that doesn't have a lot of information in it. So our approach to dealing with that is twofold. One, we made the RFP as simple as possible. And when we met with them informally, face-to-face for informal pre-bid, I handed them all a copy of the last proposal I wrote. And I said, I want to save you a lot of trouble. This is what these things look like. And here's your roadmap. The second thing that we did is when we assessed the firms that were interested in these three scopes, we had 11 firms respond that they were interested in these three scopes. And after we got done talking to them, there were only 8. And of the 8, 6 of the 8 will be able to compete on 2 of these scopes of work, not just 1. So if they respond to 1, responding to the second gets a lot easier. And I'd like you to keep in mind that this is just package A. We see the same scopes of work in package B. So there's the likelihood that out of these 8 participants that we've worked through and gained their interest, there's the likelihood that they can connect the dots between more than one scope. And if they don't win on the first round, they can likely win on the second round.
All right. It sounds like we still have a little bit of work to do. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Other thoughts, comments? Okay. Hearing or seeing none. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move now to Monica for a presentation on performance measures. Monica.
Thanks, Jonelle, and good evening, COAC members. So the project team has been working on developing draft performance measures really over the last year based on our project values and outcomes. And this has been a really iterative process that the team has been working through, and I'm happy to introduce them to you today for some discussion. So my presentation today is meant to provide some background on what we have considered so far and provide some more information on what the measures mean. And we're really excited to build on the innovative work of the team, everything that they've done to date, and bring these measures to the finish line here in the next few months. So this slide, first, I wanted to hit on what do we mean by a performance measure, and what is that really? So a performance measure is something that that can be measured, it's implementable, it has a definable goal, and they're really intended to indicate the effectiveness of our current processes and determine what success looks like for the project. So next slide. So the performance measures are an intentional application really of our project values, our North Star that has been guiding us in this project. They are intended to achieve tangible community benefits from the project. And when developing the draft list of measures, we considered metrics for all the desired outcomes for the project, as well as the overall aim and commitments that are associated with each of these project values. So on the next slide, we worked closely with experts in the team. If you could click to the next one. Perfect, thank you. We worked closely with experts in the team with backgrounds in design and construction, business, workforce opportunity, and our community involvement group to develop the draft list of performance measures. That team also included a representative from Metro and our other partners, such as the Federal Highway Administration, Portland Public Schools, and TriMet, also participated in reviewing and refining the measures through some of our technical committees. And then the Historic Albina Advisory Board has also reviewed and provided some input on the measures in the last couple months. And I'm happy to have them in front of you today to get input as well. So on the next slide, so in fall of 2020, we started considering an initial draft list of over 100 performance measures. And those addressed all different aspects of the outcomes in different ways and drew from a variety of best practices, examples from other government partners and peer agencies and professional organizations and institutions. And through much discussion over the winter, the sub-team narrowed that list down to 40 measures to kind of balance representation of the different values and outcomes and how we would implement those measures. And the sub-team also continued to work to consider where the measures could be consolidated together across the different values for broad indicators, resulting in the list of 30 measures. And that was in spring of 2021. So then in fall of 2021, we went back and reconsidered that list of measures based on our work together on the design options and the proposed hybrid 3 cover concept. We also used our community input tracking matrices to better reflect the community priorities that had come out in the previous year. And this is how we got to the draft list of 28 measures that we'll start discussing today. So on the next slide, just to highlight here, in developing and refining the performance measures, the sub-team considered whether each potential measure had a definable goal and clear potential for implementation, was the best fit for the desired outcomes, or if it needed partner participation for implementation, and just taking all these things into consideration. The sub-team also considered whether the list as a whole included the right mix of quantitative measures that could be measured numerically, or qualitative measures that could be measured with different actions that we take and such to best reflect the community priorities. So on the next slide, so like I said, the performance measures will be tracked and reported as a part of our project processes. And this may be done either numerically or for our quantitative measures, or through a list of strategies developed or actions completed or elements included in the project for qualitative measures. And on the next slide, we've also considered the timeframes in which measures could be tracked and reported to make sure we have a good balance on timeframes to demonstrate success. So some measures we'll be able to track and report right now in the design phase. Others might not be able to be tracked until construction starts, and others might not be able to be reported until after construction is complete, although we may have estimates or predictive models ahead of construction completion. So those measures that we may not be able to fully demonstrate success until after the project is complete, we envision working with the city-led Highway Cover Use Governance Commission in tracking and reporting those measures beyond the project. So further, these measures also represent a way that the agency can continue to do business differently beyond the project. This list of measures is really unique nationally and is serving as a model currently for the Interstate Bridge Program. And Rose Quarter project is one project as a part of the broader regional system within the urban mobility strategy, with other projects like IBR. And what's exciting is about this consistency will help us track real benefits, beyond the project. These are things such as DDE, workforce or capacity, and what did we build on Rose Quarter that allowed for continued pipeline growth for IBR? What opportunities for leadership were created that led to more influence and decision-making for IBR? And there's lots of other examples. Yeah, so then this slide shows, so in total, the draft list for discussion includes 28 measures. There's that good mix of 17 quantitative and 11 qualitative. One note, you'll see fewer measures listed under the climate and health, and mainly that's because that value does have so much overlap with other values. And it also contains a measure for the Green Road certification program, which is similar to like a LEED certification in the building construction industry. And that program in itself also includes 70 performance measures within that program. As you know, the project's still early in design, and we have a lot of opportunities to continue to change course and ensure that these the project is really driven by these performance measures. But at the same time, as you can tell by the work that Bill and Terrence and others are doing, the progression of the team's work related to the early work packages and the diversity plan means that this is a prime moment to really start implementing these procedures, and we need to begin tracking and reporting and evaluating our success and noting where we need to course correct. So next slide. So each measure really boils down to a central theme, which is highlighted on these slides. And based on your role as the COAC, I'm going to focus today's discussion on the restorative justice and community input performance measures. These next couple slides will highlight the performance measures kind of at a summary level. And you also received a packet from Janelle or Monica that has more details, so feel free to follow along there or use that as we get into breakout rooms. Next slide. So the central theme for the community input performance measures is community informed and involved decision-making through a community connected, transparent, and inclusionary process. So this first slide shows the quantitative measures, and the next slide will be the qualitative measures. And this draft list of community input measures seeks to track and report progress numerically on changes that were made to the project in response to advisory community input, and community-based organizations and stakeholders that were meaningfully participating in the process, our purposeful engagement with the community in support of desired outcomes, and decisions made where community felt their input informed the project. And so on the next slide for the qualitative measures, the draft list of community input measures seek to track and report these items through a variety of strategies and actions or elements around clear communication of ongoing opportunities for providing input, opportunities for developing new or emerging young community leaders, participating in key decisions, and then educating ODOT staff, project team, and the larger region about the past harms and their systemic impacts. Then on to the next slide. So restorative justice, like I mentioned, is another key value of the Rose Quarter project. And the central theme here is to accelerate social, racial, and economic equity, sustaining positive, tangible change specifically for Portland's Black community. So the draft list of quantitative measures for restorative justice seeks to numerically track added developable land that provides opportunities for the historic Albina community, increase in market opportunities, creating with wealth for the historic Albina community, support cultural heritage, education and training opportunities, recruit groups that are not traditionally represented in decision-making, who are interested in the construction industry careers, provide immediate economic benefits to the historic Albina community, and create enduring opportunities for wealth creation for the historic Albina community. So then on to the qualitative slides. These again seek to track strategies and actions or different elements that support additional career training opportunities beyond construction and deliver accelerated, tangible results and benefits to the historic Albina community through executed agreements. So on the next slide, the project team has also prepared a glossary of terms to help kind of further define the specific intention of the performance measures. And these terms we categorized into 7 different categories. So first with process, these terms are related to project procedures, words like what do we mean when we say key decisions. There's terms in the purpose category related to a particular purpose or end, such as the word intentional. In the transportation category, consider these kind of jargon words that planners or engineers might use in terms, terms that are related to transportation infrastructure or the environment and activities, things such as low stress. And what do we mean by that? In the impacts category, this is durations or timeframes over which a performance measure is anticipated to demonstrate outcomes or be measured. Often we can estimate an outcome now, but we won't know the real result until after construction. So some terms that hit there. There's financial terms, such as what do we mean by financial capacity? These are related to the market, development, financial opportunities, actions or activities. Terms around the built environment, such as streetscape. These are terms related to land use and development and construction or an urban environment. And the last category, cultural terms, such as cultural heritage, and terms related to the culture or the community and features or activities. So next slide. I talked a little bit already about how the measures have gone through a review process from the sub-team to the larger team. We've involved our technical leadership teams and with partners in our project management group and as well as HAB. So the team is now going back and revising the measures based on all that input that we've heard from everybody, and we'll be doing so after our meeting today as well. We're also beginning to research some of those numeric goals for the quantitative measures, and the goals will be established as consensus is achieved with the objective of finalizing those goals over the summer of this year. And we will be bringing those goals for input, bringing those forward to the community as well. On the next slide, as a preview example, right now in the performance measure information that you received, we just say number of changes made to the project, but is that 5 changes, 25 changes, 50 changes? What's the right measure of success towards real outcomes and results? And that's what we want to talk through next in our approach for recording that. In this case, using tools we've developed like the COAC input matrix and different meeting summaries or different information from our collaboration forums. And this goal setting process, like I said, will include input from both the project team as well as our advisory committees to make sure we get those goals right. And then next slide, we are also working on our implementation plan, and that will be used internally to kind of set up procedures necessary to track the performance measures and develop reports to report out on them. And this plan includes, like I said, the methods of tracking and measuring and assignments and who's responsible. And we're proposing that these reports will go out quarterly, which gives our team time to compile and track our progress and our actions. And we envision that this report will also go to the community as well as the HAB and you as the COAC. And these reports really are intended to give both the HAB and the COAC the opportunity to provide the project team with feedback. How are we doing? Where do we need to course correct and maybe celebrate some of our successes as well? And this slide is just showing an example of what a template might look like for reporting performance measures. You'll notice this includes a placeholder text for the goal, like I mentioned before, with just that number sign. And then once those goals are set, we would include the actual goal and then report out on our progress on something similar format to this. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Janelle, to, I think, send us into breakout rooms.
Great. And before we do that, any questions or comments before we break out in breakout rooms? I know that was a lot of information to digest, but want to open it up for any questions or comments. Art?
Yeah, one of the things that I was trying to get across to Bill that falls possibly in your area, Monica, is the support portion for that people that will be working on RFPs to have an opportunity. So I think some sort of mentorship or somebody there to help them fill out the documents correctly, review, give them a pathway to success. So if you're going to build anything, that would be really appreciated for anybody that needs that support on that project.
Yeah, great comment, Art.
Okay, seeing if there are any other. Okay, seeing none. Okay, now we are going to have an opportunity to break out in small groups, and I'm looking to Team Antivirus to give us some instructions on that.
Okay, good evening. Yes, so we're going to break out into breakout groups, and this is just for the public that we will reconvene at 5:40, and you will hear a summary from the breakout groups team leader. So just if you have comments in the meantime that you would like to submit for us to entertain after we come back from breakout, we ask that you can verbalize your question by calling 503-470-3127, or you may submit them at the website that's listed on here. Thank you.
And for the facilitators and each of the breakouts, I believe our CMGC team has agreed to help us out. Bill, I believe you're taking one group, and who's taking the other group?
Web will be taking the other group.
Web, okay, awesome.
Yes, and just for briefly, here are the breakout questions that COAC members will be discussing in breakout. Did the team miss something that you would like to see measured? Are there measures on this list that seem more or less important to demonstrating success? And they will come back and talk about what they discussed.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. I think we're
Okay,
ready.
Natalie. Yep, we're ready to go.
Thank you. And Natalie, do you think we can bring folks back maybe by 5:30 instead of 5:40 since we're ahead of schedule?
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
Okay,
I can just communicate that to the groups too.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Mhm.
Are folks coming back at 5:30?
Yes, they are. We have just a few seconds left on the countdown and all the rooms will close automatically.
Awesome, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We'll wait just a couple of seconds to make sure everyone's back. Okay, welcome back. Why don't we go ahead and start off with Bill? Why don't your group kick us off on report out?
Absolutely. I have to thank Shelley for now doing this 2 times in a row. She's got a commitment from the other COAC members in our group that one of them is going to be the reporter next time.
So let me find my mute button. Okay, so there was a really robust discussion in our group. The way that we addressed the 2 questions were that the ability of this process to engage in collaboration should be a measurement. This project cannot operate in a vacuum. It needs to look at all the region's projects and collaborate with the city and entities. This is what's missing. And another issue was, what about the value of incentivizing, determining what are the things we want to see and incentivizing that to the contractor? On the contrary, what about consequences for failure embedded and in the performance measures? Monitoring the project and its success in a way that looks at frequency and timing. In other words, don't wait till the end of the project. That's too late. If we need to course correct, we need more frequency and early engagement, early intervention. Leverage, we need more Bill Bruce's because he's done a fabulous job in mentoring and helping firms succeed, and then leverage other institutions to do this work as well. How do we build up some of the advocacy and nonprofit organizations that can help us also expand to combating things like redlining and bringing banks on board? Create a simple dashboard, maybe like a red, yellow, green, create viable options for the COAC to consider to implement and hold the contractor accountable when something is off. Another comment was, I'm not sure what success really looks like. We need a vision. It has to be quantitative and qualitative so we can back into defining success. And in this project, we are going to see success, but we will probably also see failure. And how do we measure successes even in the failure? Like maybe a couple of people didn't make it through the apprentice program, but we were able to make a little bit of a difference and move the dial a little bit towards the change that we want to see as a definition of success. When you see someone who doesn't have the tools to do something right, we need to hold them accountable. And then finally, we need a performance measure on mentorship, because that is certainly a missed opportunity if we do not add it. Team, did I miss anything?
I think you did awesome.
Great.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Wonderful report out. Group number 2.
That's me. That's me. It's gonna be hard to follow Miss Shelley right there, but I'm gonna try. We had a lot of information. I got it. A lot of information. Started off a little quiet, but we picked it up. First thing was ODOT accountability. So how is ODOT being held accountable from an outside source? It's pretty much saying it's like, is ODOT the only one that's holding themselves accountable, coming out with something, and it's not based off of the community helping them come through this process? So that was really big. Monica responded with goals are being set by outside. So there's measures that's being set by ODOT. We're saying these things are out there. And the community, these different groups are coming in and saying, here's the standard that we want ODOT to be held to. So I thought that was really good conversation. Closing the gap between ODOT and the community, right? The big conversation from Pastor Hennessy was the communication, right? Clear communication, clear and frequent is what I think he said. Communication. We want to hear milestones. We don't want to just get information at the end, which I completely agree. It's like, oh, this is where we're at the end. No, we want to progressively know what's going on and how are we pushing this information out. Mr. Birch, I thought I really liked this one too, the history of trust and transparency, right? I think that's key. Just how, ODOT has this historic, sometimes a bad rep from not really having trust and not being transparent. So what are we doing to solve those problems, right? Report again, as eloquent as Mr. Hennessy said, but it was the process. What was it? He used Terrence's example, if you guys remember what Terrence did earlier, just about numbers. I mean, I think that was good just to say, hey, we got 2 apprentices here and 1 apprentice here, and this guy is coming from here and this lady is coming from here. I think that transparency, it builds that trust back into the team. Monthly reviews, let's every month, let's put them out there. Let's say what's going on. We can make, and even if it's good or if it's bad, we can actually, as a group and as a unit, as a team, make the necessary correction. So absolutely love that one as well. Another good one from Pastor Hennessy. He was throwing a lot of gems out there, but I agree with this one. Boots to the ground. Like, it's very easy for all of us in here, and I like this because I'm a boots to the ground type guy, but it's very easy for people in here to put something on paper. This is what we're going to do. Rah, rah, rah. This is good. But is that information getting to the people that's boots to the ground? I think that is 100% key. It's something we need to be talking about. What are we doing, ODOT and construction teams and design teams, to make sure everybody's getting the right information? The guys that's actually running the work, the people that's going to be controlling these apprentices and that's running these project managers, that's running these projects, how are they getting this information to know the milestone, to know the goals that we put in place? I thought that was perfect. Monica responded, monthly team meetings with design and construction teams to focus on specific performance measures. I thought that was beautiful. Also, what Monica said is clear roles, and clear roles is like at Raymore and like Bill does to me and my and Jeff Senior, it's clear roles. So it's like I'm coming straight to you if something doesn't really go like it needs to, which for somebody like myself, I like that clear accountability. How to report out, preferred way. Monica asked a great question. I thought that was a great question to ask. How do you guys want us to be reporting stuff out? What's the preferred way? Hennessy said a lot of good things. One, I was surprised. He said print media is what I expected. This print media from the Scanner or Observer. When he started getting into the social media, man, I thought it was a young man's game, but he said social media, Facebook, Instagram, those type of things, possibly a blog. And then also just press, if there's information out there, let's get the press on it. Let's let people know what's going on. I told you I got a lot of information here. Mr. Birch, data reports. He wants to know numbers, labor management committees on a monthly basis. This is things that he wants. He wants something tangible. I need some numbers so I can actually help move and support you guys in the way we need to be supported. I see somebody raising their hand.
Oh, no, I'm waiting to you get through what you're doing, man.
Okay, all right.
A
little long-winded. I'm almost
got to run my mouth.
I'm long-winded. That was also, I left at the committee monthly basis. Make corrections as needed. That was from Bob. We wanted the transparency. We want to see numbers, and then we can help make the corrections. Brianna was also brought up about the Power BI. It's like a data dump. format reports, graphs, and different views to see this information out there. Try to find some type of way that we can make it make sense and make it work for everybody. Great question by Brad, came out and said, hey, it seems like on a monthly basis to do these things, it could be difficult to really do it, which is the right question, the right type of question, the statement to say, we don't want to sit up here and say, we'll do something on a monthly basis and we can't do it, right? And like I said, it sounds good in the conversation, then these things aren't actually able to, we aren't actually able to do it. So how do we do that? So that sparked the question of saying, okay, well, maybe we want good information. You know, everybody in the group said we want the right information. We want we want right times and dates and timelines, rather be done right over quickly. So if that might not be on the monthly basis, if it's every other month, if it's every 2 months, that means we can actually get some information with substance that people can really use, then let's talk about that. I loved it. Updates, Mr. Birch said updates on retainage. You know, we talking about the workforce. We want to know what are the people, what's the retainage of these people, you know, if they're dropping off, if they're not, we want to know this information. Dr. Hennessy, support the process. Who's supporting the process of, I want to know the story between the apprentice going from starting off as an apprentice, making it all the way as a success story as a journeyman. Who's taking their arms around these guys and women and making sure they're going to be successful. Brad said we're currently doing this. We got
Webb, real quick,
yes.
maybe take another just 60 seconds.
Well, this is it right here. This is it. Last little bit. Process, and we wants to make sure this stuff is happening as we're speaking. Yeah, that's it. That's our report.
Very thorough report indeed. Thank you, sir.
Don't have me do it again. I'm too long-winded.
No, it's good. This is what we need to hear. It's good feedback. We have 2 comments, Tawana and James.
Go ahead, Tawana.
Thank you, Janelle. Thank you, James. Yeah, wonderful report. I think, and you may have slightly touched on it in the end, but I wanted to just say, as you're making sure, as you are measuring the success and you're dealing with the boots on the ground, to make sure that you're also talking with apprentices and people of color directly, and not just receiving a report, but actually getting in and talking with them directly. And I apologize, I'm having issues with my camera.
Great, thank you for that comment.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just want to say I have the benefit of being old. I remember in Northeast Portland, we had a credit union, the NAACP credit union down there on Williams Avenue. We had American State Bank. I could go in there and talk to people and give me $10 so I can get me some gas and going down the street. You know, institutionally, our stuff is gone in our community. We don't have those. We used to have two or three oil suppliers. You know, this is associated with the capacity building, wealth building things that we've lost in our community. And so those institutions need to be looked at. How do we use this project to incentivize rebuilding suppliers? You know, there's nobody supplying material. There's no Black people supplying all this concrete. There isn't any intermediate people between that and trying to build capacity and wealth in our community. None of that, those dollars are coming back to our community. So I'm just frustrated having this conversation about measure and capacity building and wealth building, because I know what it could have been and what it used to be, and we don't have it. I don't see that happening necessarily on this project either. So maybe it will, I don't know, but that's my frustration.
Thank you, Mr. Posey, and a frustration that I think should frustrate all of us. So question becomes, how do we leverage these resources and the resources of Interstate Bridge Replacement Program, as well as other projects to rebuild some of these institutions to advance wealth. So thank you all for that. We're going to go into our public comments now. First of all, Natalie, do we have anyone who has signed up for public comment?
I think it's actually Corinne leading this.
Oh, I'm
part
sorry.
today.
My apologies, Corinne.
That's okay. At the moment, we have no one in the waiting room to present a public comment. But those who are watching via live stream on YouTube, you still have an opportunity to give us a quick call if you choose to make a public comment by calling 971-247-1195, entering meeting ID 880-3045-7705, passcode 518722. If you think of anything that you would like to share post this meeting, or you're viewing this meeting later, we still welcome your comments in writing to the I-5 Rose Quarter at ODOT.oregon.gov or through the project website, i5rosequarter.oregon.gov. We still have no one signed up to speak. Janelle.
Great. Thank you. So if we could go to kind of a wrap up, Megan, want to just look to you if you have any wrap up comments you'd like to make.
Thanks, Janelle. Just a heartfelt thank you to the COAC this evening. You know, these performance measures are one of many of the tools that we're using for accountability, but this is exactly why you're here, is like help us define what we're looking towards for success, help us define how we track that in kind of our process. And our commitment back to you is we're going to keep you in the loop all along the way, kind of reporting back out on these as we go. I know from my breakout group and kind of what I've heard from Web 2 and kind of questions is, how do we best report this back to you? What's the right format? Love the suggestions we heard tonight. So really looking forward to putting this into action. I just want to thank you again for all of the really solid input that we got for tonight.
Great. Well, thank you all as always for participating in COAC meeting. We will see you all next month. Thank you.
Let's go. Bye.
Thank you.